How's it going, everybody? I'm Jay Thompson. I am the Red Bearded Wine Snob. I'm here from Northeast Ohio, and I'm launching this show, relaunching this show. It was launched once back in 2018, but I've grown my hair out a little since then. So now I'm going to be putting the show on this channel now, the TMNB Team channel. It used to be on my own channel, the Red Bearded Wine Snob, but I needed a team. Now I've got a team. I've got a great team. They're wonderful people. So make sure you go check out the TMNB team and check out all the other shows on that channel. I'm just one of many shows. So tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So best way to celebrate Valentine's Day? Drink some wine. Today I'm going to be featuring Ferrante's Winery. We're located off of Route 534 in Geneva, Ohio. Best way to celebrate Valentine's Day is with wine and chocolate. I happen to love lava cakes. Love them. They're delicious. And one thing you can pair with lava cakes is red wine. I've got some Cabernet Franc. And when you pair a nice dry red with chocolate, it's so good. So good. Ferrante's glass. So I used to work at Ferrante's. That was one of the first places I started working when I decided to work in wineries. Decided I wanted to learn from the best. Nick Ferrante, he knows what he's doing. So I went and learned from him. So, nice dry red. It's got some earthy tones to it because it's a Cab Franc. Very velvety. I love that. Got a little bit of black licorice flavor. And just a hint of that. Nice dry tannins. A little bit of black cherry first. Good stuff. That paired with the chocolate. This is that. Happy Valentine's Day. Cheers. One more time without my mouth full. Happy Valentine's Day. Cheers. Take a bite of that chocolate and then follow it up with the Cab Franc. I could do this all day, but then I get very drunk. I'm going to filter my wine. First I have to clean the filter. I've got number 2 filter pads here. Number 2. Safely sealed away. Go ahead and break that open. And those will go into the filter. One pad in between each plate. Then I tighten it down. Tighten it down multiple times. I want to get it as tight as possible. First, in order to clean it, I'm going to use potassium metabisulfite, which I have right here. Go ahead and put in the desired amount. And this will sterilize the filter. Well, let me correct that. Sanitize. Put it around there. Got the intake. This is what sucks in the wine. Comes into here through the pump, into the filter, and then out here, which I will, for now, run straight back into the same bucket. And then a drain pump, which I have emptying out into a bucket. Tight. There we go. There we go. As you can see, pumping it straight through. So I'll go ahead and let that run for a couple minutes. This way it will sanitize the filter. It's good to get all 3 of the pads wet. Go ahead and do that. There. And this assures that you won't have any dirt and contamination in your wine. And cover the hose. This is going to be the hose that goes into both carboys, both of these hoses. So I want the hoses to be sanitary. Put those in there. Stop that. Just leave that in here for now. So I'm going to take the metabisulfite, have the desired amount measured up in here. So I pour it in first. That's just going to stabilize the wine and make sure that any fermentation that might still try to happen won't happen. Last thing we want is more fermentation. We're done with fermentation at this point. Now we just want it to stabilize, clarify, and get ready to bottle. here, open up the mulberry wine. Today we are filtering mulberry wine. Intake goes in there, and now drop that into outgoing, goes into my scrap bucket. I call it the scrap bucket. Prime it, turn it on for a minute, and right there I'm seeing red wine coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the carboy. Start it back up. And there we go. So now it's pulling this out of the first carboy, running it through all three of these filters, which I will retighten. And sending it through the outgoing into my new carboy. So now I'm going to slide into the background here so that I can watch. I want to watch the hose to make sure that when it gets down to the bottom here, I'm just getting the wine and not the tart base. Show you close up. Real fast, we're going to take a little quick sample. Back down in. First we'll look at the color. Oh wow, that's much better than I thought it was going to be. Oh man. This is good stuff. Oh man. It still has some carbon dioxide in it, so I can definitely take care of that. But other than that, it has a very unique flavor. Got some tartness to it. It has like a raspberry flavor. Very tart because it's mulberry wine. So after another racking, I will make the decision as to whether or not to put sugar in this. Usually I don't put sugar in it, but when it comes to fruit wines, sometimes the fruit wines need a little bit just to help them out a little bit. Like I say, the peach wine might have turned out a little bit better if I would have had a little bit of sugar in it. But for now, we're just going to fill this guy up and then let it sit for another couple of months. There you have it. Completely racked from this wine, from this carboy into this carboy. I'm gonna bring that down to about here or so. Might be able to drink that little, probably drink that little bit. But yeah, I'll take that down to there, and then after that I need to rewash my cork, which I can do in my bucket of metabisulfite water. So this is an airlock. It's got water in it. What this does, oxygen can't get through because of the water, but oxygen can escape. So when it creates carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide comes up through the airlock and bubbles out the top, but it doesn't let any oxygen back in. So that way your wine is safe. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about the different wines that I've made in the past. Let me pour a little glass of wine real quick. Good stuff. Definitely love a dark red, a dry red. Definitely love a dry red anytime I can get one. I'll drink the sweet stuff occasionally, but I really like the dry stuff. Cheers. So the first wine that I ever made, well, let's start more recent years. We'll work our way backwards. One of the more recent wines I've made, got a couple down here. Let's see, is this? All right. That one, and then this one. Oh, that's a rosé. Niagara. Okay. This one here is my Riesstraminer. This one was made with Riesling and Gewürztraminer, 50% of each. I bought the juice from Ferrante's winery, fermented them both separately, and then blended them together to create Riesstrominer. Has notes of apple, pear, some citrus. It's one of my prouder wines. I really loved drinking this one. It was good. Turned out really nice. All that's gone except for this bottle, which I'll never open because, you know, gotta have one of everything. Shortly after the Riesstrominer, I made peach. I made a peach and a peach Riesling, and I think that peach Riesling was all it drank up. This is what's left of the peach, one bottle of that. It was okay. It was a nice little experiment. I don't know if I'm going to try making it again though. Thought it would be better than I liked. Probably would have been better if I put more sugar in it, and then that would have appealed to the sweet wine drinkers. But again, I'm not a sweet wine drinker really, so. There's peach. Good stuff. This was Niagara. I made this. I was sold 9 or 12 boxes worth of Niagara grapes from Emerita Vineyard, Kathy Crowley out there on Ledge Road. That's a new vineyard that's just opening up, a new winery. You guys definitely check that out if you get a chance to come up here. And so I pressed them there, and then brought the juice home, and racked off the lees, fermented, racked off the lees, racked off a few more times, eventually got this nice clear Niagara. So, while I was working at Ferrante's, he had some Pinot Noir, which had a noble rot on it called botrytis. And that's not a bad thing per se. Generally, if you have a whole big huge field of the stuff, what he does, he just cuts it off and gets rid of it. So that way all the prime, really good fruit is left over for harvest. But one year when I was working there, he cut them off and he said, if you want them, you can have them. So, I mean, I had like 72 boxes worth of botrytis-ridden Pinot Noir. He has a huge vineyard. I don't think he realized I would find a way to process all those grapes, but I was already talking to other winemakers in the area, and as I've discovered, the winemaking community is very much a community, and they all help each other out. So I got a hold of John Manis from Hunley Cellars. He helped me get the grapes all ready, and then he got a hold of Benny Vino, and we got his press. So we brought that press back and we pressed all my grapes, fermented. He let me ferment them in one of their tanks at Hunley's. And then, very last minute, he told me, you got to get this stuff out of here. He had to make room for their new stuff, you know. I was pretty much just leasing their tank. So I went and brought the tank. He said, go ahead, take the tank home, empty it out, and bring it back. So that's what I did. I brought the tank home, emptied it out, bottled them up. So this was Pinot Noir Rosé. And what a rosé is made when you take the dark grapes, the red grapes, and you crush them like a white. If you take white grapes and crush them, you don't ferment them on the skins. You just press them right away, squeeze all the juice out, run that juice into a tank, then you put yeast in it, and then ferment it, and you turn it into wine. A rosé would be the same way, only you use dark red grapes. Normally, if you have red grapes, like Cab Franc, the way that you get all this beautiful color here is because it's actually fermented on the skins. So for a red grape, you would crush the grapes, but you'd leave all the skins in there, and then go ahead and dump in some yeast. And every day you got the yeast eats sugar and then it turns that into alcohol and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide bubbles up at the top, which pushes up the skins. So every day you got to go in and punch down the skins. So for the whole month that it's fermenting, the winemaker and his assistants are in there punching down the skins, making sure that it stays all nice and wet. And then after it stops bubbling, after that cap stops rising up, eventually it'll just stay down there. That means it's no longer producing carbon dioxide and alcohol. Fermentation is done. So at that point, we go ahead and send it out to the press it off of the skins, get rid of the skins, then you just got some good dry red wine. Love the stuff. Good stuff. And I worked at Ferrantes for 3 years, so I got to see all the aspects of it. Harvesting, all the work throughout the whole season, pruning throughout the winter time, bottling, everything. Truly an experience of a lifetime. So then another year I created Pinot Noir. I believe this batch I just bought the juice already fermented. I went to Debonnaire Vineyards. They're one of the first wineries to start doing this around here. Arnie Esterer from Marco Vineyards, he was the first. Debonnaire was right behind him, I believe. And then Ferrantes is like, they're like the three of them were like the reigning kings of the area. And unfortunately, Arnie Esterer passed away like a year or two ago. But that winery is still going. The family still runs it, and we will do an Arnie Esterer tribute episode here in the future. So here is the Pinot Noir I created from Debonnaire's juice, and yeah, it was very delicious. I actually was proud of this one. I drank it all except for this bottle. And Cab Franc. Cab Franc comes from Ohio. I mean, it does, no. It comes from France. It doesn't come from Ohio. It grows very well here in Ohio. That's one thing. One reason that I picked this. I'm trying to showcase Northeast Ohio wineries, Northeast Ohio wines. And some wines do better than others. Of course, some episodes you're definitely going to see me up here with some Chardonnay. Love some Chardonnay. But Chardonnay is very hard to grow up here. It can be done, but it's not easy. Same with Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a little more of a challenge. Generally speaking, if you're south of the Grand River, you can grow it. If you're north of the Grand River, you're not quite going to ripen. But it's the risk you take. So, I'm going to switch wines here. Now we've got some ice wine. This is another one of Ferrantes. See, this is 2019. I was there to help harvest these grapes. So it's kind of cool to drink the fruits of my labor. I mean, Nick Ferrante made this wine, but I was definitely there helping pick the grapes, helping prune the grapes over the winter, helping do all the maintenance work throughout the rest of the season. This is good stuff. A sweet ice wine. I can drink a sweet ice wine all day. I mean, probably not, because it's got such high alcohol content, it'll get you drunk very fast. One thing about ice wine, do they put the alcohol content on here? Oh, this is 11%. Okay. It can go up to 15 or 17% depending on the winemaker. He tries to keep this at a nice level, 11%. But this stuff is made from grapes that are frozen. They stay on the vine until it's 17 degrees. So, you know, you're way past October. You're into November, December, sometimes January before you get a 17-degree day. Especially with the way the climate's been happening lately. You don't quite get 17-degree days as often as we used to. So, it's hit or miss. Some years, a winemaker might put bird netting on his whole row, well, however many rows he's going to make ice wine with. He'll net it all off and then wait for that day. Preferably, you want it to be a second or third day. If you can get it frozen for 24 hours and then pick it, they're in good shape. But sometimes, you know, you look at the forecast and you're only going to get one good day, and then it's going to be warm after that. So you're like, all right, but let's just do it. So that's the call they have to make. So when I first started making wine, the very first wine that I ever made was ice wine. I figured I want to do it right. You know, I wanted my first wine to be something that I could be proud of. And go figure, at the time, I loved sweet wine. I've went through an evolution myself. Used to love the sweet wines, couldn't stand the dry wines. And then suddenly I went through a change. And now I love the dry stuff and I can't really stand the sweet stuff, except the ice wine. Ice wine's the sweetest wine you can make. So what I did, I went to Emerita Vineyards, and this was back before they were doing a whole lot with their grapes. This was a few years ago, 2017 I believe, and she said I could pick some of the grapes for ice wine harvest, otherwise they were just going to fall. It was, like I say, she'd only had the place for a little while, I'm not sure how long, but she was just going to let all those grapes rot and fall. So it was no big deal for me to go out there and pick a few boxes of grapes to make ice wine with. Once she gave me permission to do that, it was New Year's Eve that I went out there to pick ice wine grapes. My good friend Jesse Leonard, he came out there to help me, and the two of us were out there in 2.5 feet of snow. We brought a sled. We put the boxes full of grapes. I mean, the box is about, you know, this big, about that tall, about that deep, and you fill it up with regular mushy grapes in September, October, and it's like 25 pounds. You fill it up with frozen grapes, it's like 40 pounds or 50. It's so much heavier. And there's a little bit of snow in there that you can't help but ends up in there, and it's so heavy. So we stuck it on a sled and pulled it from the vineyard back to where my car was so we could load it up into my car and bring it back home. I had a press at my house that I was lent, and I brought it down into my basement. Luckily it was so cold I just left the door open, left all the grapes out there in the snow, and one by one brought a box down and started pressing them. Bring another box down, start pressing them. I picked them New Year's Eve, started pressing New Year's Day, and finished. I double pressed the grapes. After you were done pressing them, I took what was left and repressed them to get any more I could get out of it the next day. And then after that, that was it. So I pitched them after that. Gave me 2 carboys worth of Concord ice wine. I made one that I just left as Concord ice wine. That's this guy right here. And then after I had to rack off of the yeast, you get about this much stuff down at the bottom of the carboy. And when you rack all the liquid off of that, you stop right there. So you don't want to get any of this stuff down here. Well, that leaves this much space empty in your next carboy. Oxygen is bad for wine. So you can't have oxygen in your carboy. So when I racked over to the next carboy, I had this much space left in it. I started freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I gotta top it up somehow. And you know, I was just a fresh, brand new at trying to make wine. I didn't have marbles. You know, that's one way to do it. If you get some glass marbles that are sterilized, you can start dropping marbles in there. That'll displace the volume, so the liquid level will rise up to the top and get rid of the oxygen. I didn't have any of that. So I looked around my kitchen. My mom had sent me some raspberry juice from her own garden. That she picked her own raspberries and created some mason jars worth of raspberry juice. And those had just been sitting in my cupboard. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. All of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. So I topped up one carboy of Concord ice wine with a little bit of raspberry juice. And that just kind of flavored it. It topped it up so that the oxygen wouldn't ruin it. And it gave it this slight hint of raspberry flavor with the Concord ice wine. Oh my goodness. It was so good. So yeah, that was my raspberry flavored Concord ice wine. So those are the 6 wines. I mean, if you count the 2 ice wines as one, because it was all one experience. The 6 different wines that I've created. Ice wine, like I said, it only grows you can only do it in a few places in the world. They do it in Germany. I'm not sure about France. Northern France, maybe. Not Spain. Canada. Canada does a lot of Cabernet Franc ice wine and Vidal Blanc ice wine. Up here in Northeast Ohio, we can do it. Like I say, it all depends on the climate. Sometimes the climate works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, this is good stuff here. I can say there's a vineyard called Kasichik Vineyards, or it's Kasichik Winery. He made an ice wine this last time that was called 51 Bricks. 51 Bricks is insane. The bricks is what they refer to for the number of the sweetness level, the sugar level. Normal wine, okay. So grape juice, when you ferment it, before it's fermented, the wine's catching up to me. So the grape juice, before it's fermented, it has a sweetness level of around 20, 22 bricks, somewhere around there, 21, 22 bricks. You've heard of some wineries went ahead and named themselves 21 bricks. It's a good one. But that's your normal wine. And that's the sugar level you start with when it's still grape juice. Then you put in your yeast. The yeast eats all the sugar, so you're watching the bricks level the whole time. And when it gets down to 0, then you know you've fermented it all the way. If that's what you're looking to do. You know, some ice wines, they'll only ferment it down to 16 or so, and then they'll stop it. But that's because they started ice wine. The sugar level in an ice wine was so high to begin with. I think that's why Kasichik named his 51 bricks, because when he tested the grape juice before fermenting it, it was 51 bricks. That's insanely high amount of sugar. That's like pure syrup dripping out of the grapes. And that's how it happens. When you squeeze out the grapes when it's 17 degrees, you don't want to bring them inside, let them warm up, and then press them. The whole point of letting them freeze in the first place is so that you can press them frozen. So you press these grapes at 17 degrees while they're frozen. All the water stays locked up in the grape. The only thing that squeezes out when you're pressing it is that sweet, syrupy, delicious grape goodness. It's just like good all block syrup, I guess you could say, or Concord syrup, or some wineries do the or Cabernet Franc, and yeah, that's how you get such high amount of sugar in your ice wine, because when it's pressed, you're only getting the sugar. And that's why it's so good. That's why it's so sweet. That's why it's so delicious. I love this stuff. This is so good. You get the sense of honey and apple and apricot. Oh man, it's the honey and the apricot is so strong. It's insane. This comes from grapes, but when you taste it, that's what you get. And you gotta swirl. The swirl it opens up the wine. So when you open it up, when you want to drink it, that's when oxygen is your friend. If you're trying to preserve it, you don't want oxygen. But when it's time to drink it, go ahead and let some oxygen in there, swirl it around the best you can. What it's doing is it's breaking down the alcohol. So in 24 hours, this will be vinegar. But right now, since we just opened it, it's delicious. Same thing with your dry reds. You want to swirl them around, let them sit for a second or two, let that open up. That's why they make decanters, so you can let it open up even more. Some wines need it more than others. Cheers, everybody. Ring for wine. Time for more wine. Oh yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about my autographed bottle collection. Here we go. First, I've got to show off this book backwards. This is Magic in the Bottle, written by Clifford Annis, and it's written about Arnie Esterer of Marco Vineyards. So this was the first guy to start growing grapes, or he was the first guy to start making wine out of vinifera grapes in Ohio. That's Arnie Esterer right there, of Marco Vineyard. And he is referred to as the grandfather of vinifera in Northeast Ohio. Oh, it says it on the back of here. The father of vinifera in Ohio, not the grandfather. The father of vinifera in Ohio. I stand corrected. He was the first man to start growing vinifera and then make wine out of it. So, when this book came out, I had to get it autographed, of course. Now, I was fortunate enough to get it autographed by both Clifford Annis, whom you will see in one of these future episodes, and I got it autographed by Arnie Esterer. That's Arnie, and that's Clifford. Love me some autographs. And on that very same day, I got a Marco wine. This is Cabernet Sauvignon. And I had him autograph that as well. So this is a 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon. And because it is autographed by Arnie Esterer, I will never open this bottle. That goes with all my bottles from my autographed bottle collection. Once it becomes autographed by the winemaker, I'm never going to open it. This collection is one of my pride and joys. I love this collection. Such a cool collection. It's kind of small right now. There's only a few bottles in it, but I'm working my way up. There's like 30 wineries in Northeast Ohio, so I'm definitely going to build my collection. Next wine. This is one of my favorite wineries in Northeast Ohio. This is M Cellars. I had it autographed by Matt and Tara. There's Matt, and then much love Tara right there. Tara and Matt, you know, they're husband and wife. They're both the winemakers. I guess Matt's from what I understand, Matt's the primary winemaker, but you know, she's right there with him. And this is the Meritage. This is my favorite blend of a wine. This might be my favorite wine ever. This is the Meritage Reserve. This isn't even the Meritage, this is the Reserve. So this one, 75% Cabernet Sauvignon, 10% Cab Franc, 10% Merlot, and 5% Petit Verdot. They pay into the Meritage Alliance, and that's why they're able to call it a Meritage. That, and they follow the rules. 12.9% alcohol. This is good stuff. Located just down the road from Debonair. You definitely got to stop in and see these guys, for sure. Definitely my favorite winery in Northeast Ohio. So this one comes from Buccia Vineyards, and this is Earth Day Rosé. And that was signed by Bill Holden. He bought the place. He's not the original owner, Buccia, but they retired and sold the place to Bill Holden. So now he owns it, and he's a very forward-thinking man, and I like, he came up with this whole Earth Day Rosé, and not only is it delicious, it is delicious. It is so good. I tried this stuff, and my God, it's hard to put it down. You just gotta keep drinking it. And this is another one of them rosés. Check out the color there. It's beautiful. And that was, what does it say? I believe this was a 2018 or 2019. And it still has that much color to it. Beautiful. Proud of that one. That's a good one for the collection. And of course, having worked at Ferrante's, had to get an autographed bottle from Nick Ferrante himself. So cheers, Jason, Nick Ferrante. And this is his Pinot Noir Reserve. 2017. Oh yeah, I was there for that. That was the year that I started. That was the year I got into grapes and wine in the first place. So this bottle has some sentimental value to me because of that. Because I was there. That was when I started. That's when my journey began. And yeah, this stuff showcases that passion beautifully because it is so good. I mean, Nick made this, not me, but it is such a good wine. His Pinot Noir is top notch. He throws out all the stops on that stuff. He machine picks this whole vineyard except for the Pinot Noir. He has that hand picked because he's that picky about making sure that it's the finest quality grapes fermented just right. Good stuff. So far, those are all the bottles I have so far. Just 4 bottles in my autograph bottle collection. So I've got many more to go. so I will throw that out to the other winemakers of Northeast Ohio. I have an autographed bottle collection, so I will definitely be hunting you down, asking for an autograph, trying to build up my collection. Cheers. Here's another segment of wine trivia. So for this segment, I'm going to ask you guys one question, and you guys get to figure it out for the next 2 weeks, and in the next episode, I'll tell you. So the first wine trivia segment question shall be, what type of grape is a Vidal Blanc? Is it a vinifera, a Lambrusca, or a hybrid? I'll tell you in 2 weeks. So most wineries have the musicians that play music. I wanted to kind of feature that a little bit in here too. So here's a little cutaway of a musical segment that I'm going to have at the end of every episode. Here's a song called My Home in Mountain Home. Thanks for watching. What a day. Filtered my mulberry wine. We talked about all the wines I've made. Looked at my autographed bottle collection. Tried some very delicious Ferrante's wine. But most importantly, that mulberry wine, that's sitting nicely. I'll let that sit for another couple of months. See how it's looking. Probably bottle it pretty soon. It's already getting pretty close. My goal to wait until June when the mulberries are harvested again. I'll get some fresh mulberries, press that into juice real fast, and then sweeten up the mulberry wine with some fresh mulberry juice. Rather than sweeten it up with sugar, I'll sweeten it up with the actual mulberry juice. So that'll be good. That'll give it some of that mulberry flavor. So that will be in another episode. Thanks for watching. Check out the B Team on YouTube. Make sure you check out the other shows. We got It's Casual with Rory Penland, Burn It Down with Tom Cheshire, the R&D Cafe with Renee Jaworski and Dennis Tardan. We got Under the Influences with Jonathan Phipps. There's Powered by Women. There is The Warrior Within. We've got so many shows, I can't even keep track of them all. Mine's just one of many shows. So make sure you check me out on the B Team. I am the Red Bearded Wine Snob. Like and subscribe.